Let's see. Shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom, sembet salam. I don't know if I is on the air right now. Had a little bit of technicals behind the scene. I think so. But we'll just check this out right here, momentarily and see what Tagwan right here. But give thanks, brothers and sisters. Give thanks to our Father, Kedamawi Haile Selassie, in the name of Yeshua HaMoshiach, Jesus Christus, our Black Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for the eyes' patience and for the eyes' attendance as well, on this gathering right here. So what I'm going to do right here is, as I get some access to the dashboard, I just want to heal up one on one and see if I'm being heard. There's a little break in the musical selections, but I hope that them enjoyed it. I'm going to heal up Baras Simon. Salam to Tainai Stalin if the eye is there. Just make I know if I can
Shalom.
hear I. Awo, shalom, Rastafari. So the eye can hear I on the eyes, on the eye side, right?
Yes, I live and clearly.
Awo, Miskana, give thanks to Abba Father. Yes, I. So, all right. I'm not gonna come forward to the eye once again. Like the eye sit in the eyes chant when things don't go right. Still we give thanks and praise.
For real.
Life giver for life.
Real.
Yes, I. Shalom, Mandame. Shalom, I, brother.
Shalom.
Oh, yes, I. So we are on the air and we have gone live, and this is the Rastafari Sabbatical Studies, RSS number 17. The Parsha, or this Torah portion overview, and it's named in the English Jethro. In the Hebrew, Yitro, and in the Royal Amharic of Negusa Neges Kedamawi, Haile Selassie, it is named Yotor, and it's based on the Torah portion reading and feeding in this particular season, which is the 17th Torah portion, 17th Shabbat. It's the 5th reading and feeding and study in the book of Exodus, and it constitutes Exodus chapter 18, verse 1, to Exodus chapter 20, verse 23. I, as black Jews, Ethiopian Hebrews, and elect among the Rastafari in the diaspora, we read it in the 17th and on the 17th Shabbat after the joy of the Torah, the Simchat Torah, Orit Desita, and that's generally in late January or February. Now, what's an interesting note is that Ethiopian Hebrews and Jews, black Jews, as well as I, as elect Rastafari, we also read part of this Torah portion or Parsha, namely Exodus chapter 19, Exodus chapter 20, verse 23, as a Torah reading on the first day of the Hebrew holiday. Some call it a Jewish holiday, but more correctly, on the first day of the Hebrew holy day of Shavuot, or in the English that is known as harvest, the harvest feast, the harvest festival, which commemorates the giving of what is called the Ten Commandments. But a little note on this particular matter, because there's much to touch on, and I think this Torah portion is very instructive for I within the ministry of His Imperial Majesty, and especially among I as a line of Judah Society and the Rastafari Groundation and other brothers and sisters who are churchical in the teaching of the King of Kings and through His Christ, and our Black Lord and Savior Yeshua, that the Ten Commandments actually I know some people might not get it at first, but just patience, check it out. I'll point to the evidence. There's no such thing as the Ten Commandments, actually. I know people say, but it says Ten Commandments. Actually, it's called the Decalogue, right? Asher Talat in the Ethiopic and the Royal Amharic, and in the English from the Greek is called the Decalogue. Right? The Deca means 10, and log or log refers to words. So it's actually the 10 words. What we call the 10 Commandments is actually one commandment. It's actually one composite commandment that has 10 parts, or we can call it 10 words, right? So what is often called the 10 Commandments, that's somewhat erroneous, yet it's understandable how that particular name came about in the Western Gentile tradition, but truly it's the 10 words. That's why you find James state in the New Testament that if you break one part, you basically break all parts. It's like a contract, like an agreement, where it's one, but it has like 10 stipulations, you can say. Anyway, this Torah portion, we'll get more into detail on that, and I look forward if ones have, observations or questions about that as well. The summary for this particular Torah portion, the short summary, is two parts, namely Jethro, or Yitro, which was, some say Moses' Midianite or Ethiopian in-law. He reforms adjudication. And then the second part is what's called the 10 Commandments, or the law, the 10 words. Now, a little more detailed outline of this particular Torah portion, dealing with addressing the Torah portion first, then we'll touch on the prophet reading, as well as the Berit Hadasha, or the Hadis Adis Kidan, the New Covenant reading, in I and through I, Black Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos, the glory of I, Abba, Father, Kadamawi, Haile Selassie, I, Jah, Rastafari. So the more detailed portion outline is Exodus 18:1 is Jethro's advice. Exodus 19:1, the Israelites reach Mount Sinai or Sinai. Exodus 19:9, the people are consecrated. The people consecrated, set apart, made Yetekedes or Kiddush, holy, which means to be set apart. Exodus 20:1 is the 10, quote, commandments, end quote, or we're going to begin to call it what it is, the 10 words, or the law. Right? Exodus 20:22, chapter 20 at verse 22, there's a specific law, or we could say precept, concerning the altar, a Scofield Study Bible, or the first Scofield Study Bible, which we recommend a little more than the New King James Version. But if you have that, then the same notes exist in both of them. I want to go over a little bit about the Mosaic Covenant right here, because we're going to go and listen to Alexander Scourby read both the Torah portion as well as the prophet reading and the New Testament. Now, the prophet reading for this Torah portion of the previous 17th, actually, this is the fulfillment, this is after the Shabbat. After the Shabbat, the churchical gathering, as was done in times past, in the times of the apostolic church. We find this in the New Testament, where they would gather, on the Sabbath, and also especially after the Sabbath, usually to reason with Hawaria Paulos, as we have in his many travels in the book of Acts of the Apostles. So in the true trad, or the true yad, the true tradition, or the true yadishin, this gathering of I meeting together on the ear and in the spirit of the King of Kings and his Christ is one and the same. So it's tawahido, right? It is fused with that true practice that brings forward the perfection of the King of Kings in Christ for I and I, and I, and I, and I. Now, the New Testament, the prophet reading is Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 to 7, and verse 6. So Isaiah chapter 1, the whole chapter, to Isaiah chapter 7, verse 6. Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 to 6. And if I have this here, I think I'll check the dashboard, but the official host, I still say is Lydia Zawadi, but I is learning this and being taught this, and I give thanks, I give thanks as well for that. Let's see right here. I just clicked something and this thing just went out on the dashboard. So let me get the chart, the Torah portion reading and feeding chart that you can find under the daily readings at Rastafari Groundation. So if ones would like to study and to follow along with this order, the Royal Order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, then you can visit RastafariGroundation.com. You'll see there's like a menu bar in a kind of a, orange, yellowish, golden kind of a color. You'll see daily reading, and the first one, Torah readings. You'll click on that, and when that page comes up, there's a PDF that one can download or can bookmark that, particular page. But New Testament, the New Testament reading is for this Torah portion, the 17th Torah portion, the Jethro, Yotor, Yithro Torah portion is Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 to 20. So in our listening to the presently designated reader, Alexander Scorby, we probably will listen to the entirety, of the chapter to get a fuller context. In the Mosaic Covenant, we have to recognize that what we call the 613, some say 614, but we've counted 613. We'll like to see what that extra 14th one is right there. But there are 613 laws, statutes, precepts, judgments, and ordinances, the whole full volume. What makes the 10 words so especially important is because the 10 words actually outline the Father's will. In other words, the Father's will, what his perfect will is. What we can say that what Yeshua fulfilled, especially in his liberty, for us, and what we are able to fulfill in and through Adonai, in and through the Lord, in and through our black Lord and Savior by way of faith, in him, is this perfect law which outlines the perfect will of the Father. These 10 words, or what is found to be called often the 10 Commandments. Now, the Mosaic Law, and I'm just going to read a little bit right here from Exodus, the footnote from Exodus chapter 20. Since I began off, I begin off to touch on the Mosaic Covenant and these words about the 10 Commandments. It's not the proper, it's one command. It's one, and in fact, even in the Amharic and even in the Hebrew, this is singular as one command and mentioned as 10 words, 10 words, 10 words, 10 words, right? So the Mosaic Covenant, which was given to Israel, right? Firstly, it was given to Israel, right? Secondarily, it's in 3 divisions or 3 parts. So we even see within this is a foreshadowing, as it were, or a revelation of himself, i.e., in the Trinity, even in being in these 3 parts. So we'll find, if we study and we pay attention, we'll see that a lot throughout the Word, the Trinity, in other words, that the law is in these particular parts right here. Let me see if I can bring up this. Okay, something else I would like to share with maybe a little bit, in the forwards. But going on right here, it's in 3 divisions, and each is essential to the other. Each part is essential to the other. And together, they form what is known as the Mosaic Covenant, the Mosaic agreement, the covenant, the kidan, the berit, namely vis-a-vis the commandments, and the commandments, or more correctly, the law, the 10 words, expresses the righteous will of Ha-Elohim. It expresses his righteous will. That's contained in Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to verse 26. The second part of what we call the Mosaic covenant, the second part of this Trinity is the judgments. Judgment, but these are the judgments, as Psalm 140, I think it's 140, I think it's 149, if I'm correct, or it might be 150, where it says, where it speaks about the written judgment, not the judgment that we want to make up or we feel is, in our feeling, but what we're fulfilling, seeking to fulfill the written judgment, or the judgment written. In fact, let's just spend a moment here so we can rightly divide this word. And hopefully, brothers and sisters, you have brought your pen and your paper, as well as sacred scripture, and willing and attentive heart and mind to receive the half of the story, and to read and feed and to share with I in the King of Kings and through his Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christos. Here is Psalm 149. In 149 and 9 it says, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. That word saints is holy ones. Remember, we're going to read about the Israelites being consecrated, being set apart, being made holy, set apart, consecrated, all basically the same, one and the same. And then it ends off, Psalm 149, with praise ye the Lord, praise ye Yahweh, or hallelujah. So when it says to execute upon them, right, the judgment written, this is the judgment written, the judgments governing the social life of Israel, or the judgments that govern and regulate, give regulation to the social or the society life of Israel and of I as Ethiopian Hebrews, and the first church, I as a church, the firstborn, the church of Rastafari, the church of the firstborn, as Scripture points out in the book of Hebrews. So we find that from Exodus chapter 21, verse 1, to Exodus chapter 24, verse 11. So that's the second part. So we have the commandment, the 10 words, first part, the judgments, the second part, and thirdly, right, lastly, but definitely not leastly, is the ordinances, what we call the ordinances, or some might even call this the precepts as well, the ordinances, and the root of it is order. But these ordinances, they govern the religious as well as the spiritual life of Israel and of I in spirit and in truth. So even the new covenant, this is fulfilled, right? The spirit of this is fulfilled. Now, well, let me go forward. Let me just read this, and you'll hear it for the eye itself. So here, Exodus chapter 24, verse 12 to Exodus chapter 31, verse 18. Now, these three elements, these three parts is tripartite. It's a trinity. These three elements, they form collectively in the Hebrew and Hebraic mind what is called, in translation, the law. As that phrase is generically used in the New Testament. So if you go to Matthew 5, verse 17 and 18, speaking of the law, right? So when we go to Matthew chapter 5, let's go there right now, 5 verses 17 and 18, and let's just read this right here to remind ourselves and the eye them of what Yeshua is saying to us, 17 and 18. This is under a section called the relation of Christ, of Moshiach, to the law. He says in verse 17, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, or as I Rastafari say, downstroy, but to fulfill. Verse 18, for verily I say to you, or for amen I say to the I them, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So this is the reference here that we have under the notes of chapter 20 in the book of Exodus, and we're using the first Schofield Study Bible as a basic first grade kind of a reference point for all of us, so we will be on one page, as it were. So now the commandments and the ordinances, or the commandment and the ordinances, they formed one religious system. And we're going to use that word in this context so we can understand, because as Matthew does speak about the difference of religion as well as of spirituality, right? And so we have to note this so we can understand this in the way that is pleasing to our Abba Father. Now, the commandment were a ministry of, some say, condemnation and of death. In 2 Corinthians 3, verse 7 to 9 is a further reference for those who would seek to study this. Now, the ordinances, they gave in the high priest a representative of the people with Yahweh, with Jehovah, with Yahweh, right? The ordinances gave in the high priest a representative of the people. Now, the new covenant teaches us in the faith of the King of Kings and through Christ that Yeshua HaMashiach, I, Black Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, he is truly I high priest. And we're called in this Torah portion we'll get to hear and study, where the people were called to be a nation of the priesthood, right? A nation of the priesthood. And then if we study Revelation, first chapter, we see that fulfillment of this will of the Almighty, right? But because of the weakness that was in the flesh of the Israelites, it was not fulfilled, and instead the Levites, remember the golden calf incident, because all the other tribes went after that, but the Levites remained firm, and so they became the holders of the priesthood. But that was not what the Almighty's original will and intention was, that the whole nation be a nation of the priesthood, and to basically be the priests, or the almost like the Levites, what the Levites served to all, to all the world, to all other nations. But Israel fell short of that. And in the sacrifices, the Old Testament, the debtors, right, it was a cover. And then this links with atonement and other very important issues that we're just going to briefly summarize right here. For their sins in the anticipation of the cross. So all this was done, in anticipation of what Yeshua HaMoshiach fulfilled in that Meskel Zaf, in that cross tree, right? This is all in anticipation of the cross, or the cross tree. Now, the Christian, or the Christ man, male or female, I, with a new name, Rastafari, are not under the conditional Mosaic covenant of works, the law, but we are under the unconditional New Testament, or Brit Hadasha, Hadis Kidan, New Covenant of grace. Right? Now, of course, I know there's a lot of ideas about that, and hopefully we'll have time to touch on that as well. Now, it's very important. I'm spending this time on the 10 words, falsely called the 10 Commandments. It's one commandment, 10 parts, 10 words. You break one, you break all. Yeshua fulfilled all. And through him, right, and through hearing him and receiving his faith, we are able to fulfill all, and through the grace and truth of the one whom Abba Father has sent. There's a threefold giving of the law. This is what's also very interesting. There's a threefold giving. So the law has three parts, right? And then there's also a threefold giving of the law to Israel. Firstly, it was given orally, right, where it was just spoken from the mouth, right, in Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to verse 17, which we're going to go over and listen to. Now, this was pure law. This was pure law with no provision of priesthood and sacrifice for failure. So when Elohim, the true power, the first power of the Trinity, when he gave this, right, his intention, his will, right, was that this is pure law and there's no provision of priesthood and sacrifice for failure. In other words, when we get to see the priesthood come in and the sacrifices for the falling short, that was not his perfect will. His perfect will is summed up in this pure law. And it was accompanied by the judgments. So his pure law went forward, no provision for priesthood or sacrifice for failure, and the judgments. We find that in Exodus chapter 21, verses 1 to Exodus chapter 23, verse 13. These relate to the relations, listen. This relates to the relations of Hebrew with Hebrew. In the New Covenant sense, it is of I Rastafari, Jew or Gentile, with I Rastafari, Jew or Gentile. But in the Old Testament sense, this relationship was with Hebrew, to which were added directions for keeping three, right? Trinity, Selassie, 3 annual feasts. And I know there's a discussion amongst us, and I'm really happy to hear this interest among so many of I in a calendar and studying time and the seasons. Well, this is the groundation. This right here is the groundation here. It begins with these 3 annual feasts, which comprise 7 holy days. The 7 holy days are in these 3 annual feasts. And what's interesting, if you look in the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty, he also alludes to this, that even in the Christian or the Christ man, the Tewahedo way, there were 3 feasts. There were 3 times. If we have that, I'd like to bring that out to the eye so that hopefully both now and in the future, this can be a reference, or at least a point of reference, right, to the study of Torah. Here we go, right here. We're getting the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty, and I'd like to just show you how wonderful Abba Father, how credible, not incredible. Abba Father is not, Kedamawi Haile Selassie is not incredible to me. He's very credible. In other words, that means we give him credit, right? That I was studying His Majesty's autobiography, and I had came across this right here, and it was one of those real moments. Like, how interesting is that when he was giving instructions to the church before he was king. He was instructing the church to clean up its act, and certain things he was telling them that they were to do, and certain things he was telling them that they were not to do. So who is the head of the church? All right, I, Abba Father in Christ. So let me see if I can find this portion right here where he speaks about the three holy days, or the 3 times in the year, and this, in the New Covenant sense, perfectly corresponds with what we are reading and what we have within the Old Testament tense. So we see even in the visitation of the King of Kings, we see a fulfillment of this as well. So if you would just be patient with I just want to scroll through here and see if I can find this particular section quickly and just share this with the eye. If I don't find it right now in this pass, I'll try to, off the ear, touch on it and bring it forward to the eye in the forward. So give thanks, my brothers and sisters. A little zeal here to share this with the eye. and to reference and source it so people can, so I peoples can look at it for themselves and study it and, reason and see what it means to I. So there were these 3 annual, here we go, just saying the word. It's chapter 4 of the autobiography of Emperor Haile Selassie I, known as Hiwate Naya Ethiopia Erimja in Amharic, Book 1. It's in chapter 4, the chapter that is called, About My Appointment to the Governorship of Harar and its province, circa 1910. And near the end of the chapter, on page 41 in the English version, page 23 in the Amharic version, for those that might have the Amharic version. Actually, this was touched on page 40. Right? On page 40 right here. All right, on page 40. On page 40 right here, it says this, a line I highlighted. He was speaking to the Abagaz. He was speaking, if anybody can put your phones on mute, speaking to the Abagaz, it says, hitherto work on the Sabbath was forbidden, His Majesty says. You will, in fact, be punished when found working on the Sabbath. You find this on page 40 of the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty under Chapter 4. Now, on the next page, near the end of this proclamation, this awaj that His Majesty was giving to certain clerics and church folk, or church administration, he says right here, he says, for the 3 annual festivals, he says, for Meskel, Christmas or Lidet, and Easter or Fasika, he was speaking to them, receive $2 each in lieu of castrated goats. But beyond this, you will not receive anything. This was in Harar, the 13th of Hamle, 1909, Ethiopian calendar, or the 21st of July, 1913. So he is basically kind of trying to weed out corruption that was going on, where there were certain priests and priestly ones who were overly taxing the people. You know what I mean? He says, so you can get a little idea of his, seeing how the law, his perfect law, even is manifest and fulfilled in the visitation, in the person of Aina Abba Father. He says, if the peasants tell you about the money which has been extorted in excess, and if you persist in not returning it to them, and if then the peasants do no work and come to me to complain, then the loss is yours, and you will have to pay the money and will then have to give it back to the person who had taken it from the peasants. And as for you, peasants, do not come to me before you have spoken to the Abagaz and the Damina. Now, the Abagaz and Damina were like local elders and others, we'll get into that. Then he says, for the 3 annual festivals, for Meskel, Lidet, or what they call Christ Mass or Christ's birth, and for Easter, or more appropriately Fasika, he says, receive $2 in lieu of castrated goats. In other words, he said, leave the goats alone, take the $2, right? So he was bundling out the debtors, fulfilling the new covenant, right? But beyond this, you will not receive anything. So I wanted to point that out to the them as a kind of a reference and something that was brought to I attention. And as you study, no doubt you will find even more interest within that, because coming forward to this reasoning right here, that accompanying the pure law, the 10 words, what's called the 10 commandments, right, was the judgments. And these judgments relate to the relation of a Hebrew with Hebrew, or bro with bro, so to speak, right, to which were added directions for keeping the three annual feasts, right? The 3 times in the year that we were required to come together. You see what I'm saying? And instructions for the conquest of Canaan. I look at this as the instructions for the conquest spiritually in the new covenant of the promised lands. These words Moses communicated to the people. Immediately, in the person of their elders, they were admitted into the fellowship. The fellowship is like the brotherhood, the fellowship of Elohim in Exodus chapter 24, 9 to 11. I know this is going a little bit forward, but we're already in that 18th Torah portion, and we will probably hear a little bit of it, the first readings coming forward. Secondarily, Moses, Muse in the Ethiopic mean the head of a fraternal order. Just a kind of a note right there. The name Moses in Ethiopic is Muse. And Muse is a title. It means the head of a fraternal order. Second, and the order was the Aperiu in Egypt, but later on known as the Levites. Second, Moses was then called up to the mountain Midian known as Sinai. The front side, the back side is Horeb. It's a mountain that has 2 peaks. The name Sinai means dual or twofold. We also get the word Mishnah. But second, Moses was then called up to receive the tablets or the tables of stone, or the Hebrew hieroglyphs. The story then divides Moses in the mount. He receives the greatest instructions concerning the tabernacle, priesthood, and sacrifice. Meantime, the people, led by Aaron, they break the first word. Some say the first commandment. More correctly, the first of the 10 words. Moses, returning, he breaks the tablets, the tables of stone that were written with the finger of Elohim, was written digitally. The word digit means finger in Latin. So this was written with Elohim, with Jah's digits, right? Going forward here, the third part of this is that the second tablets or tzilat tables were made, and the law again written by Moses, Muse, in the presence of Exhiabihir, the sustainer, Yahweh, he be, his divine majesty. So I wanted to speak on that briefly right there, and to just give a little introduction before we listen to the reading and the feeding of this particular Torah portion, which begins in Exodus chapter 18 and verse 1. Now, coming up, and I think we're going to get right into it, so we'll have enough time, to really discuss and also hear some of the, studies and notes and probably, no doubt, revelations by other brothers and sisters as well. Now, Jethro, he reforms what's known as the adjudication. Now, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, who was a Midianite, but Midianite was basically is a Texan, an American, basically, but he's a Texan. So is a Midianite an Ethiopian? Yeah, but he's a Midianite. That's where he dwells, in that part of the ancient empire or those lands connected to the same central government or central culture. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, he heard of all that Elohim, Baruch Hu, he is thrice blessed, had done for the Israelites. And he brought Moses' wife, Zipporah, and her 2 sons, Gershom, which means I have been a stranger here, and Eleazar, God was my help, or Haile was my help, to Moses in the wilderness at Mount Sinai. Jethro, he rejoiced. He blessed Ha-Elohim, which also means that Jethro also was a worshiper of Ha-Elohim and therefore also worshiped Jah, though he was of a different nation, nationality of people. Jethro rejoiced, he blessed Elohim, and he offered sacrifices to Ha-Elohim. The people stood from morning until evening. They waited for Moses to adjudicate their disputes. In other words, they already had issues. But I and I, we have issues. That's why John gives us the instruction so that we can build the true structure that is pleasing to him. Jethro counseled Moses to make known the law and then to choose capable, trustworthy, and Elohim or God-fearing, Elohim-fearing, or Elohim Kadamawi Hala Selassie respecting men to serve as chiefs to judge the people, bringing only the most difficult matters to Moses. Moses heeded Jethro's advice. Then Moses bade Jethro farewell, and Jethro went home. And then that part segues to the 10 words called the 10 Commandments. Now, before I begin to play the audio portion of the reading, so if you have your Bibles, the basic instruction before liberating Ethiopia, BIBLE is an acronym. It also means basic instruction before leaving Earth or leaving the earthly and moving to the Isla, moving to the Ayahites, as it were. That in this Torah portion, what's interesting, and we're going to be touching on this, Yah willing, in the Torah portions coming forward, that there are what they call positive and negative commands. I know people have heard the rumors and the allegations that are not really convincingly in a real court of law sustained, that people say, well, the commandments, Moses stole this, he plagiarized this out of ancient or what they call Kemet, right? Well, nothing could be further from the truth, because even if you compare the negative confessions of Neb Seni, that's the person whose negative confession they're talking about, somebody named Neb Seni, right? You will find that was 42, 43, something like that in the 40s. But in this one Torah portion, we have 3 positive and 14 negative so-called commandments in this. I don't know, maybe I didn't hear it right. But isn't there a difference between a confession and a commandment? I mean, I know they both begin with a C and have an O, you understand, but isn't there a difference? So if you say, the 10 commands, right, or the commandments as they're called, and the confessions are 2 different things. So Neb Seni said that he had not done this, he had not done that, 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 he had not done that. It doesn't really seem like you're telling people, giving them a good advice, don't do that. What happened if you did do that? That's why I want to ask one of the Hotep niggas, like, okay, what happens, say, if you did violate something? I mean, what do? Could you say it? If you said it to the gods and the gods let you in, that means you could fool the gods? I mean, those are some questions, but anyway, that's besides the point. I just want to go over this right here and then cue up the audio for the eye then, that in this one Torah portion there are 3 positive and 14 negative commandments in this portion. I'm just going to go over that at a lively pace, and then maybe we can touch on it in a little more detail. What a feet in the forwards. What a feet is the Amharic for to say forwards or to say future. What a towards feet, the face, towards the forwards. To know, the first one is to know that there is Ha-Elohim, the true power. Exodus 20:2. Not to admit Amen in divinity besides Ha-Elohim, in any divinity or so-called God beside Ha-Elohim, Exodus 20:3. Not to make an idol, right, for yourself, Exodus 20:4. Not to worship idols in the manner they are worshipped, Exodus 20:5. At that time, speaking about don't do what these folks had done, what Egyptian religion had descended to, almost like what Christianity has descended to even now, that you have people in churches having clowns, having clowns in the church. It's like, what has it become? Same thing with Egypt. At one time in Christianity, even among the Gentiles, there was true grace and truth. But we see that even that Satan has brought that down. That's what happened in Egypt. In great old, mighty old Egypt, it was brought down to be a base nation. Not to worship idols in the four ways we worship Elohim. Not to take Elohim's name, Hyla's name, in vain. To sanctify or set apart all the common things. This is separate, the Shabbat or the Sabbath, or in Amharic we say Senbet, with the Kiddush and the Havdalah, in other words, with holy words and certain ceremonies, but it's holy, you know what I mean? That from the other days, Exodus 20:8. Not to do prohibited labor on the Sabbath, Exodus 20:10. And I've just read to you from His Majesty's autobiography, Book 1 of Hiwatena Ethiopia Rimja, My Life in Ethiopia's Progress, in the translation, that His Majesty also very clearly said to them, and I'll just re-emphasize on page 40, he says, hitherto work on the Sabbath was forbidden. Now you will, in fact, be punished when found working on the Sabbath. So His Majesty is basically saying this. He's saying that before this time, before what he was proclaiming to them in that proclamation, it was forbidden, right? Work on the Sabbath. But because people knew it was forbidden, but they say, okay, what you going to do about it? And then His Majesty said, well, from now on, if you are found working on the Sabbath, if you're found working on the Sabbath, he says, you're going to be punished. So even we can see some people say, oh, so it's past thing and it's no longer, that's Old Testament, rah, rah. They're liars, right? Because the evidence proves they're liars. The next one is to respect your father or honor your father and mother, Exodus 20:11. Not to murder, right? Exodus 20:13. Not to commit adultery, Exodus 20:13. Not to kidnap, Exodus 20:13. Not to testify falsely, Exodus 20:13. Not to covet another's possession, Exodus 20, and to make human forms, some say even for decorative purposes, Exodus 20:20. And you have to remember the context. They were just coming out of degenerating Egypt. Egypt at that time had degenerated far from the time of Joseph. Not to build the altar with hewn stones, Exodus 20:23. And there's something very interesting about this, too. If you study geometric, sacred geometry, and you know that if you look at stones and rocks, natural rocks, they have their own crystalline structure. So the Almighty said that we are not to cut these, like in Egypt and other civilization where they hew it, but to take the live stone, the lively stone, the uncut by human stone cutter mason, stone mason hands. But then if you think about it, when you cut the stones, you change the Jah-created, the crystalline, like a crystal has its own, if you now start to chop it up, it's not going to have the same energetic effect. I thought that was interesting. And the last but not least right here is not to climb steps to the altar, right? In Exodus 20:26. We have about 43 minutes remaining, at least in this portion of the broadcast. So without further delay, give me a moment. Perhaps some music will play forward while I just set this up and also check with I co-host. And we will be listening to the Torah portion, reading and feeding. So praise ye Jah, Rastafari, Kedamawi, Haile Selassie, brothers and sisters. So stay tuned. More to come, Yah willing. I will. Shalom, Rastafari. Again, this is to I and I fellow co-hosts. Let's see if I can bring the Torah portion, reading and feeding in, and we're going to begin from Exodus chapter 18 forward. If there's any delay on this end, if I and I brother in can also initiate, I'll let you know if I'm having a delay on this end. So once again, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Amen. On this end, it's not going through. If I can initiate the Exodus 18 and the readings.
Chapter 18. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, and that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt, then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land, and the name of the other was Eliezer, for the God of my father, said he, was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness, where he encamped at the mount of God. And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law Jethro, am come unto thee, and thy wife and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare. And they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto even? And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And they judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. Chapter 19. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness. And there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagles' wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded them. And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the 3rd day. For the 3rd day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall not an hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned, or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the 3rd day. Come not at your wives. And it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning, that there were thunders and lightnings, and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long, and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. And let the priests also, which come near to the Lord, sanctify themselves, lest the Lord break forth upon them. And Moses said unto the Lord, The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou chargedst us, saying, Set bounds about the mount, and sanctify it. And the Lord said unto him, Away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee. But let not the priests and the people break through to come up unto the Lord, lest he break forth upon them. So Moses went down unto the people, and spake unto them. Chapter 20. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep, and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon.
The reciting from the prophets, the Haftarah.
Chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also I heard the voice of the Lord, saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I. Send me. And he said, Go and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate, and the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten. As a teil tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. Chapter 7. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz the son of Jotham the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin the king of Syria, and Pekah the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim. And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field, and say unto him, Take heed and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and of the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah and vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeal. Thus saith the Lord God, It shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If ye will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. Moreover the Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David, is it a small thing for you to weary men? But will ye weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. The Lord shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall hiss for the fly that is in the uttermost part of the rivers of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. And they shall come, and shall rest all of them in the desolate valleys, and in the holes of the rocks, and upon all thorns, and upon all bushes. In the same day shall the Lord shave with a razor that is hired, namely by them beyond the river, by the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the feet, and it shall also consume the beard. And it shall come to pass in that day that a man shall nourish a young cow and 2 sheep. And it shall come to pass, for the abundance of milk that they shall give, he shall eat butter. For butter and honey shall every one eat that is left in the land. And it shall come to pass in that day that every place shall be where there were 1,000 vines and 1,000 silverlings, it shall even be for briars and thorns. With arrows and with bows shall men come thither, because all the land shall become briars and thorns. And on all hills that shall be digged with the mattock, there shall not come thither the fear of briars and thorns, but it shall be for the sending forth of oxen, and for the treading of lesser cattle. Chapter 9. Nevertheless the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, in Galilee of the nations. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. Thou hast multiplied the nation, and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according to the joy in harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For thou hast broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it, and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent a word unto Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim, and the inhabitants of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart, The bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together, the Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For every one is an hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire. It shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm, Manasseh Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Chapter 9.
Reading from the New Covenant, Brit Hadashah.
Chapter 8. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, there came a leper and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus saith unto him, See thou tell no man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to this man, Go, and he goeth, and to another, Come, and he cometh, and to my servant, Do this, and he doeth it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you, that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the selfsame hour. And when Jesus was come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and ministered unto them. When the even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils, and he cast out the spirits with his word, and healed all that was sick, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Esaias the prophet, saying, Himself took our infirmities, and bare our sicknesses. Now when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave commandment to depart unto the other side. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Jesus saith unto him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. And another of his disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. But Jesus said unto him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead. And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves. But he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he saith unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? And when he was come to the other side, into the country of the Gergesenes, there met him two possessed with devils, coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way. And behold, they cried out, saying, What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? And there was a good way off from them an herd of many swine feeding. So the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said unto them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine, and behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea, and perished in the waters. And they that kept them fled, and went their ways into the city, and told everything, and what was befallen to the possessed of the devils. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they besought him that he would depart out of their coasts.
Amen, amen. All and I say, amen. Give thanks for the reading of the Word, reading of the Torah portion from the 5 books, the reading of the full reading of the prophets, the Haftarah, and lastly but not leastly, the reading of the Brit Chadasha, the New Testament Torah portion. Yes, my brothers and sisters, I'm still having a little bit of trouble here on this, the technology, whatever, technology, but hopefully the voice is still going through. But I dashboard seems to be a little frozen, but still, we give thanks for the co-labor of I and Wyndham Och, Wyndham Yasun, and Wyndham Yifty, as well as Zawadi, working behind the scenes and keeping this ministry, this word, sound, and power of the gospel, the good news of the King of Kings, according to the BIBLE, the basic instructions before liberating Ethiopia. Yes, I am bringing forward the kingdom. Yes, this is it's very interesting. If hopefully the item have listened fullness and also have, just taken the time to kind of read through, this Torah portion, reading and feeding. There seems to be many consistent themes that we find in each particular Torah portion. And according to the Rhema revelation, that means like the right now, revelation, one can see that the word is living, and it's very illuminating upon us. I took a couple of highlights even from each part as I listened to Alexander Scorby read it again. And I read these things, but also hearing them. That's why it says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Jah, by His word. As His Majesty says, for my part, I glory in the Bible. So we bring glory to Him by the study of the word, by the reading, of course. But after reading, we really need to study it, because it's in the study of it that other elements, that our Ray and I face, but might not be apparent at first glance. And what I wanted to share with the eye in the remaining time that we have before we seek to open up the lines, and I don't know who's on the dashboard that can, but if I'm gonna try to utilize, it's the part with the audio clips doesn't seem to be quite well playing the right part, the right-hand side part, but the left-hand side part does seem to be working. But something that was brought to eye just prior to the going on the air was from the Essene Gospel, and since we heard the reading of the 10 words or the 10 commandments, I like to just share this right here from the Essene Gospel of Jesus Christ. I think it's on page of our printing right here, some open source information that we printed up in a volume, the Essene Gospel of Peace, actually, the Essene Gospel of Peace, translated and edited from the original Hebrew and Aramaic text by Edmund Bordeaux Szekely, if that's how he pronounces it. I don't know if we have this as a PDF available, but we have it as a hard copy. If we don't have it as a PDF available up at Rastafari Groundation, hopefully we'll seek to post a copy of this so at least ones can get a reading of this. It's like the full Essene, the Essene Gospel. So here's from the Essene Book of Moses, and it's a section on the 10 Commandments. And I beseech the eyes patience and attention to listen to the reading of this. So, Besem Ab, Wawelu, Memphis, Kedus, Ahadu Amlach, name the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Ila Irit, the one source. Awo, Amen. It says, and Mount Sinai was altogether in smoke because Yahweh, he who be, descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount, and Yahweh called Moses up to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. And Yahweh called Moses out of the mountain, saying, come to me, for I would give thee the law for thy people, which shall be a covenant for the children of light. And Moses went up to Elohim, and Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord, thy God, thy power, which have brought thee out from the depths of the bondage of darkness. Thou shalt have no other laws before me. Thou shalt not make to thee any image of the law in heaven above or in the earth beneath. I am the invisible law without beginning and without end. Thou shalt not make to thee false laws, for I am the law, and the whole law of all laws. If thou forsake me, thou shalt be visited by disasters for generation upon generation. If thou keepest my commandment, thou shalt enter the infinite garden where stands the tree of life in the midst of the eternal sea. Thou shalt not violate the law. The law is thy Elohim, thy source, thy power, thy Hayel. Who shall not hold thee guiltless? Honor thy earthly mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, and honor thy heavenly Father, that eternal life be thine in the heavens. For the earth and the heavens are given to thee by the law. Thou shalt greet thy earthly mother on the morning of the Sabbath. Thou shalt greet the angel of earth on the second morning. Thou shalt greet the angel of life on the third morning. Thou shalt greet the angel of joy on the fourth morning. Thou shalt greet the angel of sun on the fifth morning. Thou shalt greet the angel of water on